most of the time. Left Alaman and then no side door.
All right, here we go. Another Sqaure Dance Callers Talking. Tonight, I'm going north of the border. I have a man who is in Canada. He's going to tell us where he is and what he's been doing with Sqaure Dance. And tonight I have Joe Uberlacher. How are you, sir?
I'm great.
Did I say that correctly?
It's one of the versions.
Okay. Okay.
It's Uberlacher.
Uberlacher. Okay.
German pronunciation would be Uberlacher.
All right, sir. And so now I did tell everybody you're in Canada. Tell me where you are right now.
Right now, I'm in Cochrane, Alberta, which is just a little bit northwest of Calgary, where we're going to have the Canadian National Convention next year, 2024, in July, right after the Stampede.
Okay.
So a lot of people coming out for the Stampede and then staying. And we have, we probably only have room for about 30 more people, and we'll be at our max numbers.
That's a good thing to have. If you're hitting the top end of the numbers, that's outstanding.
Yeah.
So now, are you from Canada?
No, I'm from New York originally.
New York. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I heard something in your voice. Tell me about that. You're born where in New York?
Okay. Well, I was born in Rochester, New York, so that accent is very prevalent. My A's are very harsh. When I say tag the line, it's tag the line. I'll tell you a quick little story about the accent.
Okay.
I was calling a C1. I don't know what it was. I think it was a C1 dance down in Charlotte, either Charlotte or Shelby, North Carolina. And during the break, a couple of these guys were talking and laughing and all. And I walked over and I said, "You guys don't know the rules, do you?" And Jake says, "What was that?" And I said, "Well, you don't tell jokes without the caller. You got to include me." And Jake said, "Oh." He said, "Well, we were just talking about the funny way you talk." I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I do talk funny." I said, "What do you call that thing that lets us see you in the dark?" He said, "Oh, the lot?" I said, "Yeah." "And when you take pencil and put it on paper, what do you do?" And he said, "I'm writing." "Yeah." "And when you stand in a queue at the bank waiting for your turn, what are you in?" He says, "A line." I said, "That's it." I said, "You guys don't have any eyes." I said, my speech impediment, I pronounce all the letters.
I got you. Okay. Very good. Very good. So born in Rochester, New York. Okay.
Yeah. And then from there, I traveled quite a bit. I went to university in a little place called Fredonia, New York.
Okay.
It was a state university. And then I started teaching music up in the Adirondacks of New York.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started into calling. I taught music, and I had a class that were they learned most everything by rote. Mm-hmm. And so I was running out of ideas. So one day, I had started Sqaure dancing lessons. So I said one day, how would you like to learn how to Sqaure dance? I could show you what I know. He said, "Yeah." So we had about 3 squares of kids there, and I taught these kids learn right up through Main Street. We even went to festivals and conventions on the eastern coast there, sort of thing. And years later, after I had traveled around a lot of different places, going back there, I found a lot of them, their parents were dancing. The kids had grown up and gone away, but the parents are now dancers. So, the activity can be quite far-reaching. You really touch a lot of people's lives in the activity.
Now, what got you? You don't just walk into Sqaure dancing. Who got you into it? When did you start actually dancing?
Oh, dancing? Well, I started in must have been '64. Yeah, okay. Same year I started calling, actually.
No kidding. Okay, I've heard that
Yeah.
a couple of times, not a lot, but I've heard that a couple of times. Well, so you started taking lessons. When did that start? I mean, how did you get into it? Family or friends or
Oh,
what?
yeah. Well, being a teacher in the Adirondacks, there's not a lot of things going on up there.
Okay.
And it was the foothills, basically. So when the teachers would get together on a weekend or anything, they mostly drank. I didn't drink. So it was good for half of the evening, but then once they got fully polluted, it's just kind of
Hmm.
deteriorated. So my wife and I said, we got to find something else to do. So my wife said, well, my next older sister did square dance. And in fact, they were the adult chair people for the teen club in Rochester, New York. So my wife said, well, why don't we see if we can find something like that? Would you want to do that? I said, sure. So she researched, found there was a class 10 miles away, which, go figure. Only thing was, it was on a Tuesday night, and I was doing graduate work at Syracuse University. I said, well, call them and see if they know of any other places. They said, yeah, we have the same caller down in Herkimer, New York, 90 miles away. Now, for those that don't know, the Boonville area of New York is the snow capital of the world.
Wow.
When
Okay.
we would get snow, we'd get 3 and 4 feet at a time. Um, we didn't sand or salt the roads or anything. You drove on the snow. It was useless to try to get rid of it. But anyhow, so we went 90 miles every Friday night, 3 hour class, and there were some nights it was really tough getting back home. In fact, I followed a tractor trailer one time, figuring he's going to stay on the road.
Yeah.
Can't see a thing. I can't pass him because I can't see anything. He must have magical eyes. So I followed him and I followed him, and then he stopped. Of course, he made turns, and
Mhm.
I guess I was hoping they were going in my direction, but anyhow, he stopped, and I stopped, and all of a sudden, this guy comes back to my car. He raps on the window. He says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm following you." I said, "It's snowing out there, and I don't see as well as you do." He said, "Well," he said, "I got good news and bad news." He said, the good news is you followed me really good. He said, but bad news is I'm home and you aren't." So
Wow, that's good.
that that was the so to try to figure out how to call. I asked the guy that taught me to call. I said, "Jim, how do you know what to call? How you get your corner every time and it just works out great." And he was a big guy, and he looked down at me and he says, "Zeros and equivalents." And the way
Okay.
he said it, I thought, he's saying that as if everybody in the world knows that. I'm not going to be stupid. I said, "Oh, yeah, I get that." I
And
had no
you got
idea
to
what he
figure
meant.
out what a zero and an equivalent
Not
is.
a
Okay.
thing. So I made up my little square of people. I taped every caller going around, and I would write down the choreography, and then I push my dancers through it, and then I would practice calling it. And then I thought, well, I can't call what they call because not everybody can dance all that stuff, and these kids aren't going to. I've got to learn something. So I practiced, and I would follow the number one man through the square. And so when you talk about mental calling, mental image, it's mental. It's in my head. I don't need the dancers, so
Gotcha.
to speak, to know where I am. Um, Although I've worked with Don Beck on his mental image um, teaching and find it very interesting. And Daryl uh, Clendenin also has done quite a bit of work on that particular method. But, so I would use modules, uh,
Mhm.
memorize figures, zeros and equivalents. I didn't
Right.
know they were that though at the time.
I
Did
understand.
no
Okay.
idea what they were. Um, and I went to one color school. Well, first off, after I taught these kids how to dance and all, I had a teen club there for a couple of years, and I was calling around that area a little bit, but not much. Then I went overseas,
Okay.
taught over in Guam, little island in the South Pacific.
Right.
And I got to call a little bit there, and I taught a teen club there. And then when I came back from Guam, I settled in north of Albany, New York, the capital. And I joined the Callers Association, said I was a caller.
Okay.
They believed me. Well, by that time, I had enough material that I guess I must have sounded somewhat like a caller.
Oh, very
good. So I was getting dates and whatnot, and I started a club there, but forgot where I was going with that. So anyhow, when I got back from overseas, I went, the College Association. Some of the guys from Massachusetts, they said, well, we go to the House of Roth every year up in Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. I said, oh, it's a caller school? Because I went originally on my way to Guam. I drove to the West Coast. I stopped at Lloyd Shaw Foundation Callers. They call it a caller school. I thought I was going to learn how to call. Well, they didn't teach me how to call. We did all kinds of dancing. We did round dancing. We did a lot of contras, folk dancing, a little teeny bit of square dancing. And they said, get a singing call and do a singing call. So I did. And that was my first caller school. So then when I got back from Guam, of course, I went like these guys, and I called House of Roth. That was Gloria Roth, who is a very well-known New England caller. She traveled a lot and did a lot. She was from Massachusetts originally. And her husband, Johnny Roth, who was from the Midwest, and I really enjoyed his calling too. He called with a smile. His eyes lit up, his smile. He didn't care what you danced. You were having a good time because he was having a good time. It was fantastic. Anyhow, so I went to that caller school, not knowing anything, really. And so the first time we get together, we introduce everybody, and two of the guys that were in my Callers Association, they're both from Massachusetts, were there. And they were good callers. Oh, they had big clubs and everything else, and I felt pretty insignificant. But I wasn't going to tell them that I wasn't a caller. Because, boy, I wanted to be a caller. I don't know why. I started out with the kids. That's all I needed to do. But anyhow, they said, oh, okay. Now you remember now, if the head square through four hands, they're in box 1-4. And I said, oh, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
They're in a box 1-4? What does that mean? Well, number one man is facing number 4 lady. Oh, wow. Then they got to the point where they said, okay, now if you have the heads lead to the right and circle to a line, you got this 1P, 2P line. Oh, I said, 1P, 2P line sounds kind of, what are we talking about? They said, one man and his partner, number 2 man and his partner. Oh. And you can element left from either one of those positions. I said, son of a gun. Those two little explanations opened up my whole world. It gave a meaning to everything I had done, practicing and mental imaging and all that sort of thing. So I didn't sight call at all, but I decided I had to know how to sight call, because even though I could call everything in my head and it works, doesn't mean the dancers are doing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You turn around and look at them, and they're like, staring at you. That was pretty important, impressive stuff. Now, can you call something we can do?
Yeah.
So I decided I'd learn how to sight call. So I practiced. I had no method. We didn't have the tools you guys have today.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what's out there now. So anyhow, I got to a point where I could sight call. I developed my own method, which turns out to be the one that Caller Lab has adopted primarily. In the first dance I called out as a guest caller was down in Connecticut, and Valentine's Day dance. I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to try my sight calling here now, see how well I do. So I'm smoothing with the people, and yak, yak, yak. And I go up on the stage, I put the needle down, and I look as they start squaring up, and I see I'm going to write my corners. And I like to write my corners according to the color of their costumes, blue,
Yeah.
green. Got it. I look out there, and they're all in red.
That's what we say, not on
They saw
Valentine's
that
Day.
coming. Yeah, yeah. Well, there goes my sight calling. Oh, man. So, but anyhow, I got to a point where, it's, I pretty much, well, I guess I still use modules. I still use zeros and equivalents because they work.
Yeah.
Many times you ask callers, how do they start it when they start calling a guest dance? Well, yeah, I'm going to call zeros and equivalents and modules that I know work.
You still write your corners down?
Pardon? Oh, yeah, I write my
Do you?
corners.
Okay.
I know some callers think that that's cheating or it's unprofessional. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. My job is to give the dancers a good time.
Mm-hmm.
You want a good time? I'm going to write my corners down.
Yeah.
I don't have a good memory for that. That's not names and corners. I'll give you the corny I had last week in the fifth tip.
Mm-hmm.
That's how crazy my memory is. So I write them down and I'll write down, 3 or 4 squares just to be safe. And I try to do it from front to back because the level of dancers is the front dancers are the better dancers.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I want to be able to watch around the floor. I don't want to be stuck on one square.
Yep. Yeah, you have to look around.
Yeah.
And inevitably, if you go with one, and I've learned this the hard way, if you have a pilot square and that's your only one, it's going down. It's going down at some point, and then you're just stuck.
Yeah.
So you have to work 2, 3 if possible. Now, fortunately, a lot of times when I'm calling, there's some clubs are maybe 2 squares, 3 squares on a good night. Some of them are larger. I did one last night down in South Carolina, and we had 1 square. I still wrote the corners down, but I mean it was the same 8 people. I think they had 16 total. But you have to write it down. So you consider yourself more of a memory caller or a sight caller now?
Oh, I'm a sight caller. Yeah.
Sight caller now. Okay.
Sight caller. It's just I've called so long and taught so many classes. I just kind of remember combinations that work.
Yep.
And I like the module idea or the zeros and equivalents idea because you can develop your program and progress the dancers according to what they can do. How many times have you done head square through 4 hands with the corners swing through, spin the top right and left through? Yeah. Well, let's just change that up a little bit and try spin the top, swing through, right and left through.
Right.
A lot of callers they won't dare do that because they haven't worked their checkers, sort of a thing, and that's
they don't know where you're going to be left with it. Yep.
Yeah. So what you have to do is you work with your checkers. Come on, don't be lazy. This is your job.
Yeah, no, it's something you have to work at it every day, regardless of how long you've been doing it. Especially, and now if you're bouncing around at different clubs, you can do the same little program a few times. But if you have a club, if you have a couple clubs, or you have some clubs in your area that you do it on a regular basis, you can't walk in there with the same pattern.
No. The hardest job, well, first off, the easiest job is as a national caller or internet, whatever you want to call it, traveling caller. Because you can call the same thing over and over pretty much to some extent. The hardest job is the local club caller who's calling every week to the same people. They have to, well, I do it, you have to work harder to put your program together and make sure you don't miss anything that you should be doing. Now on the East Coast, everybody thought I was a caller anyhow. And after college school, it made the choreography so easy for me. And singing calls are no problem. I'm a musician. I sing for my bread and butter before I became a caller anyhow. So the singing part wasn't a problem. It was the choreography. And of course, a lot of times we say anybody can sing. Well, anybody can sing, but can they deliver a fun performance? You don't have to be a great voice. I guess I was sort of a rebel in the teaching field as well, because a lot of the teachers, they only wanted the better students.
Right.
They wanted the kids with the good voices, or that could play a band instrument well. Well, I took anybody and everybody, because my job was first and foremost teacher. I don't care your abilities or anything else. Someone would say, well, I don't have a good voice. Yes, you do. You have the only voice that is you. Use it, do it. Be proud of that voice. Even George Burns, who spoke a lot of his lines, again, I'd call him a good singer, because he delivered a story, which is what our singing is supposed to do. But so anyhow, I travel all around the East Coast like crazy. Got to a point where I was booking 3-4 years out, and calling every night of the week, and days and weekends, and traveling. I did 3 tours a year for the most part. Of course, again, I swam upstream. Most people from the north, you would think they would go south for their tours in the winter. Not Uberlacher. No, I went to Canada. I went way up north into Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and the cold places, northern Maine. In the winter, I remember doing a winter festival one time. I couldn't even see houses because the snow was so high. And that one was funny. The one I remember most was northern, it wasn't Maine. I think it was New Hampshire. Their Winterlude dance. And they had 3 squares. And this is the time when, like, my local clubs were 20, 30 squares.
Wow. Okay.
Big, some of the clubs were 40 and 50. So in New York, I called for, at one time, probably the biggest club in the States. They were called the Merry Mohegans in Glens Falls, New York. They're no longer in existence. It's a shame. I left. What are you going to do? But anyhow, I called this winter festival. I had my one daughter with me at the time. And so I said to the people partway through the dance, I said, well, where's all the people? You did advertise, didn't you? They said, oh, yeah, this is good. This is fine. They said, I said, well, you can't afford to pay me what, we set up, as you're not going to make that. They said, oh, yes, we collect money every dance all year long. We hire the caller we want, and that's where that money goes. I said, okay, well, because if you want to pay me less and book me for another year for a regular dance or something, part of my tour or something, that'd be fine. They said, no, this is good. This is great. So then they do the 50-50. And of course, my daughter, she was about 9 years, I don't know, maybe 8 years at the time. And she danced, well, when she was 7, she was dancing advanced. By the time she was 9, she was dancing C1. Anyhow, she bought some tickets. I'm going to support the club.
Yeah.
Guess who won? So here's this rotten caller from New York who came up and took all their money.
That's good luck, though. You win that. That's good. Very nice.
But then in the summertime, then I'd go down like to, the Carolinas, Atlanta. Of course, I do Atlanta. I did the challenge levels down there.
Okay.
A couple of times a year, anyhow. Dwayne Seagraves was the guy that ran the one club. And then there was a lady also who ran, and her name was something Green. I don't remember her first name. Anyhow, they're sort of competitive, but I called for both groups. And then there was 4 clubs down in the South Carolina border around Greenville. And there's one caller, he had 4 clubs that danced. Each one danced one Friday a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down to call with him. That was funny. I had friends in Charleston, South Carolina. I said, hey, I'm calling down at near Greenville there. Why don't you come on up and dance? I said, I'm sharing the mic with another guy. So they did. Dudley. And Dudley was a diehard. He was addicted to square dancing. Oh, he would, if there was a square dance going, he would dance.
Okay.
He could be lying on his feet, he would dance. And so he comes up first square. So we get in the square together, and these other 2 couples. And the caller says, heads V, right circle to a line. Well, one of the couples did something else. I don't know what they did. And we broke down. Yeah. So we waited till he got to the corner. He Alleman left, a right left grand, came back home. Then the caller says, heads, square through 4 heads. One of the dancers in that square did something else. We broke down.
Right.
So during the break, Dudley says to me, he says, you got me to come all the way up here to dance Alleman left and right left grand all night? I said, I didn't know what was going to happen. But that was kind of a fun thing. So this caller was calling, what was he calling? He was sort of calling everything up to C1, but not all C1, not even all of it A2, A1. And so he got to doing a quarter through. And I got to tell you, never knew quarter through worked the way it did. Well, I asked him, I said, where do you get your definitions for your calls, by the way? I said, I'm always interested in resources, material.
Right.
He said, well, that's the funny thing about quarter through. He says, there's 3 different definitions in Burleson's encyclopedia. I said, there is? I said, well, how do you tell which one you're going to call? He says, well, it's whatever one I did last.
Okay.
Last. I said, oh, good. So you come up against all kinds of things.
Well, with your traveling around, what are some memorable venues you went to? Anything stand out to you with your traveling?
Oh, yeah. Of course, the different halls, like Albuquerque, New Mexico has, I don't know if they still have it. They have a beautiful hall. In fact, it was funny because the caller there, his name was Ken Anderson, but not the Ken Anderson that had the J-Bar J, J-Bar K record company. That Ken Anderson was, at the time, was from New York, not too far from where I was. And he was famous for calling in a club in the Midwest, and I think it was upstairs in a fire hall, and the furnace blew up or something, propane tanks blew up, and a number of dancers died.
No.
Yeah.
Wow, when was that?
Oh, Lordy, that would have been in the 60s, maybe.
Great, goodness. I've never heard that.
But anyhow, this new Albuquerque one, Ken Anderson, I forgot what kind of business he had, but he had a beautiful home there and everything. And I'm not sure if he provided the hall there or not, but it was a beautiful hall, and I think all the clubs owned it maybe together. That was good. And I did a caller's clinic for the weekend there. Talk about stupid, again, another Uberlacher stupidism thing.
Okay.
Saturday night after the major dance, the people that were hosting me said, the president of the club is having a little get together at their house afterwards. You want to go? I said, oh, sure. No problem. So my host couple helped me take the sound system down and all. And we got in there late. Everybody else was there already. So we walk in and they say, what would you like to drink? I said, well, what do you got? And they said, well, everybody seems to be drinking margaritas. I said, I never had one before. But by this time, by the way, being a caller, I learned how to drink.
Okay.
So so anyhow, so they said, well, have a seat and we'll bring it to you. So I have a seat, and of course, being the caller, they're all kind of looking at me, expecting me to be the host or something.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there. So they bring the drink to me, and now everybody's watching because I get my drink, and they, I don't know, watch the caller drink. So I take and I go, oh, and I look at the glass, and the lady says, is there something wrong with that? And I said, there's salt all over. I didn't want to say it, but there's salt all over the rim. She said, yeah, that's what a margarita is. I said,
Oh, wow. Nice.
sure, I knew that. Yeah. So anyhow.
Yeah, now it's changed a little. You can get it with salt or sugar now, but yeah,
Oh, jeez.
I can see that would shock you pretty good there.
Yeah. So that was one. I did a president's ball down in New Jersey one time, and they had a beautiful hall. I don't know if it was a regular hall or not, but again, fantastic. And of course, in my neighborhood in New York was a place called Ponderosa Hall,
Ponderosa.
which, it's no longer in existence.
Okay.
But the guy that he owned a heating plumbing, a heating company anyhow, and he was treasurer of one of the big clubs in the Albany area. And Red Bates from Massachusetts was their caller, and they rented the hall from Roland. And but that hall was gorgeous, floating floor, mirrors on the end walls, balcony for the guest people to watch. Just gorgeous. The biggest problem is he diluted the area with name callers, and it got to be there was no big deal. Someone say, "Hey, Marshall Flipple's coming in next Saturday. You going out there?" Nah. I danced him a couple of months ago, that kind of thing. And other than the callers like that, like Kip Garvey would come in there, and these guys call beautiful, beautiful dances. But for the regular Ponderosa Club itself, that they finally developed, they did the same thing every week. It was just regular club. There was no themes, nothing else. He showed up one time after one of my dances and said, "Can we go out for coffee? I have something to talk to you about." And I thought, because I was not real supportive of his activity at the time because of the way he handled certain things. So I thought he was coming up to say, "I'm going to sue you. I'm taking it to court." Whatever. Anyhow, he says, and this was a Sunday night, and I had beginner's class, I had a mainstream, and I had an advanced and a challenge dance all on the same day, on a Sunday, all day Sunday. And so he sees I've got SCAD's dancers, and he wanted to know how come, I was using a church hall, and the dancers would come out to me in number, and they were dropping off in his group. And I said, well, it's because you do the same thing every week. There's no themes. There's no, but you got to play. Have a holiday. Have it be a Hawaiian night. Have it be a hot dog night, Sunday night, whatever. So I don't know what he did off of that, but I know when I left the area, I think Ken Ritucci had come in and taken over some advanced and whatnot, because I had clubs right up through C3B.
C3B.
Okay. At the time. So I had everything from beginners to the almost highest level challenge. I did C4 when I went down to Florida. I was doing a Toronto district, what do they call it, TND, Well, it was T&D is what they called it. It was their big dance of the year.
Mhm.
They would have 4 name callers in, and Don Hanhurst was on staff. He's still in Florida, but he was from up around Massachusetts and all. And now he had gone down there, and he had a fantastic activity, 50 plus squares of dancing plus on a Friday night, and he made badges. He had a tape service for callers, for the round dances, for the square dances. And he said, you ought to come down to Florida and call. He said, you probably can make as much in 3 months there as you do all year up here, because all your dances go down to Florida anyhow.
Yeah.
And so I was married to Ann at the time, and so we said, let's do that. So we got some fill-ins for our clubs at home, and she didn't go right away, and she had some medical issues that she had to take care of.
Mhm.
So I went down, and because she was scheduled to call a whole bunch of stuff, I was building a program from scratch with what I was doing. I had a number of places already lined up, but she had it right up through C3. I think probably through C3. And when I got down there, forgot how it worked. I guess I went out to a challenge dance, and I met this couple that was from the Fort Myers area.
Mhm.
And they said, where are you staying? I said, well, I have a van. They said, a van? And it's hotter than crazy that time of the year. They said, why don't you come on up? We got extra room. Come on up. We got air conditioning. And you can look for a place while you're comfortable. I said, great. So anyhow, somehow or another, they talked me into doing C4. And of course, I had practiced C4 on my own as a dancer. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm just going to have to write a heck of a lot of stuff. So the first C4 dance I went to call there was like 7 squares showed up. Everybody from the northeast was down there. They and I went over to the East Coast side, and I taught C4A and called C4B. At that time, we had breakdowns differently. We even had a C3 at the time, C3 total with experimentals. So anyhow, yeah. So I was calling like from 10 o'clock till 10 o'clock. Extended. I had one afternoon off. Other than that, I called. And so I found an apartment, nice apartment, great price. It was in a community area, but it was unfurnished. So being the cheap guy I am, I went to yard sales, and for a bed I got a cot. For a chair I got a folding chair. For a desk I had one of these meal cart thing on wheels. I put my computer on that sort of a thing, and that was about it. But then I was calling for Don Hanford's, the place that he called. They wanted me to teach plus and call plus and do some other things. Anyhow, a couple of the dancers were from Canada, and they got talking one night, and the guy said, well, did you bring furniture down? I said, no, I told him the story. He said, what, do you want some furniture? I said, sure. What do you got? He said, a house full. I said, well, I don't know if I could take a house full, but he was getting married to a lady, and they were going to sell both their houses and buy a new house. So I ended up with, for a 2-bedroom apartment, I had beds for both bedrooms. I had a big TV console set up. I had kitchen table. I had everything. Mm-hmm. You name it. It was amazing. Pickup trucks. Everybody got their pickup trucks. They loaded it up with furniture and stuff and brought it to me. So it was a good experience. But then that was when we separated, and so I didn't go back and went back that next year.
Mhm.
I didn't. I stayed back in Canada and went from there.
Wow.
So different halls, yeah. There's all kinds of
Yeah.
outdoors, indoors, round halls, square halls.
Now, as far as music, you are a musician.
Yeah.
What's your favorite genre of music that is not square dance?
Big band.
Big band? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you play?
Well, I majored on trumpet and minored on voice and piano,
Okay.
and then because I went to a school where you had to learn every instrument, or at least one instrument in every group, and being the sponge I am for music, I played pretty much every band instrument going. I did not do strings. I did play bass fiddle
Hmm.
and of course bass guitar and guitar, ukulele, keyboard. So now I do jam sessions with a bunch of guitar and banjo players and
Very
whatever,
nice.
and I do the keyboard on that. But I like the big band sound. So of course, Chic Records is very good at
Hmm.
delivering that sort of material. So beautiful music they put out. In Royal, same sort of thing. Beautiful music.
What's some of your favorite singing calls?
Oh, let's get away from it all. Uh, Mike DeSisto from Washington put out a couple of records on Diamond Records. One he did was Two Time and Blues. I love that one.
Okay.
That's these are real, put them on the ceiling type ones. Not the Rose of San Antone, but the Rose of Sharon.
Okay.
Another one. One that the dancers love, and I really like it a lot. It's all that jazz. Um, on the Sir label, I Do It All Over Again. That's a really nice one. Was I right? Was I wrong?
Was all right. Okay.
Am I singing the song?
Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes when I forget the words, I have to make up my own. So I try to make them as stupid as I can.
Now, you've gone to a couple of caller schools. You've been a part. I mean, you've worked with other callers and all that. What advice, if any, do you have for square dance callers, whether it be a brand new caller or somebody with a few years in?
Work like hell.
Okay.
If you want to be good, unless you're a prodigy, you're going to have to work harder than learning any trades, learning any university degree.
Yep.
I didn't know that I was working that hard until after I'd worked that hard because it was fun. It's what I wanted. I was addicted. Um, Again, I'll take it. That phrase, I think, Daryl Clendenin might have coined that phrase or concept of you got to be addicted
Hmm.
to it to really do it. But be yourself. Just be yourself.
Yourself.
And,
Okay.
and if you don't like what you're doing, change it up. You got to get out there and meet with the people. I learned, unfortunately, I learned it too late in life. If I had been better at it when I was younger, well, I couldn't have taken more dates. Um, you know, the only time I didn't call was like Thanksgiving and Christmas, well, Easter. But other than that, it was like you fill your calendar up. It's like
Yep.
you've said it at different times. Someone says, "You got this day?" Sure, I'll be there. How much? Oh, $50.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's called marketing. It's a tax deduction.
Yep. That's exactly right. Yep. I mean, still, we'll drive a few hundred miles for $100. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Well, especially now,
yeah.
like up here, it's gone down recently to $1.30 a liter, which translates to about $5.20 or something for a gallon, which translates to US. That's like $4. Now I used to make my own diesel out of used cooking oil, and that was good because that helped. Because I was traveling. Oh my! I had clubs. Of course, Toronto was nearly 100 miles away, and I had clubs in Toronto. I had a club in Trenton, which was 80 miles away. And I worked for a while for in the aerospace industry, and that was about 100 miles away. So I was putting a lot of mileage on my car. So the biodiesel worked out great. I spent about a half an hour on a Saturday for it, and then because I could make it for about 50 cents a gallon.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the also along with that, one of the byproducts off of making biodiesel is glycerin. Pure glycerin comes off first, and you can make soap out of that.
Okay.
And again, nothing special. And you can make liquid soap, you can make hand soap. So I had a whole other business. That's why my email address is CCH Soap. It's country home soap. So I
was wondering about that when I emailed you. I didn't know what that stood for. Okay.
Yeah. But like how I got to Canada, of course, I got to Canada by marrying a Canadian, but staying in Canada, what was I doing? Oh, I went back to teaching along with the calling. And I was only teaching, I think, 2/3 of a day. And so I had time, and I always wanted to fly. So I took flying lessons. And there was this lady in the class that she'd bring in cookies and stuff for everybody and for the instructors and stuff like that for the ground school. And at one point, she and another guy and I decided we needed to study more, get some of this stuff down better. So we would get together. Well, this guy, he'd leave after about 45 minutes. He was not a real worker. My wife is sneaking around here. We got a fridge in here too.
Hello.
I robbed a cradle. That's my wife, Gail. That was the person that was bringing the cookies in.
Very nice. Okay.
So we would keep studying after Dave left our study group, and we would study some more. But we ended up just talking and yakking, and one thing led to the next. And she said, when you get your license, I'm treating you to dinner. So I was getting close to the time. I guess I got my license, and she kept inviting me for dinner. And I kept saying, well, I can't. I got a Sqaure Dance. And she thought I was putting her off. She didn't think, you Sqaure Dance every night of the week? What are you talking about? Mm-hmm. She thought, yeah, he's just blowing smoke. Wow. So finally, we did get to go out for a dinner. And we ended up getting married in a hot air balloon. Wow. Middlefield, Ohio.
Okay.
It was at National Hot Air Championship competition. Her younger son was getting National Geographic's Junior, and I'm addicted to reading as well, so I'm reading his book magazine for the month, and it says they're going to have this championship, and they had a list of the events. And on Sunday night, 6 p.m., wedding in air. I thought, wow, that sounds like fun. So I called the number, and they said, I said, do you have anybody lined up for this? And they said, no, are you interested? I said, yeah. They said, well, send your resumes, you know, or bios or whatever. So I did. And they contacted me back and said, you're on. So they paid for our hotel. The chief of police had an antique car. He picked us up at the hotel, drove us onto the field. We rented period costumes from like the 1890s sort of a thing. And so I had the top hat and the woolen tuxedo, and
In
she
a
had,
hot air balloon. Okay.
yeah, like around the world in 80 days kind of a thing.
Yep. That is very nice. Wow.
And the judge that presided, he never would. He said he would never do these kind of things, but he always wanted to fly in a hot air balloon, so he would do us. And so we were supposed to go up 400 feet and with a wireless mic do the ceremony, and then fly off for about an hour. And so we did that. What else did we do on that one? Of course, we went to the experimental aviation convention in Oshkosh prior to that. But the thing blew up like crazy. I mean, they had our pictures in pretty much every major newspaper in the U.S. and in Canada. So we were getting phone calls left, right, and center. It was wild.
That's really good. When was that? How long ago was that?
30 years ago.
Great. Hey, very good. Congratulations on that. Gosh.
Yeah.
Well, you're certainly a man of the world with flying and airplanes. What do you consider yourself, a movie or a TV guy? Or not at all?
TV.
TV.
For me, YouTube stuff.
Okay.
I love watching the log house building. There's a log house builder in Williams Lake, British Columbia.
Right.
They do beautiful log cabin setups, and it's a funny show. I mean,
Okay. Log house building. Okay.
Yeah, they're fun. I like to watch the watercolor, well, acrylic painting as well, but I'm sort of more into watercolor painting.
Okay.
So I like to watch how different people do theirs. I like boxing, so I watch a lot of boxing, MMA, fighting.
Is that your sport? You like boxing and MMA?
Yeah. I like tennis. I was a tennis player. Well, I tried I tried football when I was in grade 7, and I've always had glasses. Well, you can't wear glasses when you're in grade 7 playing football back in 1900s, whatever it was, back in the day. And I got a hold of the ball, and I made a touchdown.
Okay.
For the other team.
Wrong way? Okay.
So the coach convinced me I would be better off in some other sport.
Wow.
But then, of course, a couple of years ago, yeah, 2018, was a major change in our life.
How's that?
We had seen this ad about caller wanted in Florida, in Long Key, Florida, in the Florida Keys.
Mm-hmm.
And I called them originally, maybe around 2010 or something. And they said, yeah, we'd like someone. I said, well, I've got an activity going up here that I can't really get away from right now. So maybe, in the future. Well, as it happened, we wanted to do some vacationing. So we said, well, why don't we check with these people again? They still hadn't got a full-time regular caller that they wanted to keep. And so they said, can you call for us? I said, well, the best I can do, because I've got commitments and dates up here that I can't, I can't, my own clubs I can get substitutes for, but guest calling dates I can't. I said, so, I got a couple of years back up on them, but I could probably do, and I might have been March, February, whatever it was 1 month. So we went down and rented a place there, and I called. And they tried to convince me to come back the next year. And I said, well, I can't. I said, probably the year after I can. They said, okay, well, we got this guy, and you probably know him, so I won't say his name. I'll tell you about him afterwards.
Okay.
And because he's from your neck of the woods, they had him for a year, and he was not really a caller.
Okay.
Okay. And so I did. I arranged it and everything else. And on the way home from that particular trip, my wife and I were talking about it, and we said, we love to travel. Why don't we sell our house, buy a motor home or fifth wheel or something, and travel? Put our stuff in storage, and then we can come down here and stay in our whatever we have. So we sold our house and bought a big Ram dually truck and a 42-foot fifth wheel and headed off for the hills. And that was kind of just before COVID, of course. Well, I had a good year there, and then the next year I went back, and of course that's when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And we got out of Dodge just in time. So now we got a fifth wheel and we're stuck in Canada. And we had a park model home in a community on a lake in Ontario. So we thought, well, that'll work. Well, we could only be there 7 months of the year. So I checked it out and I thought, well, we can go to British Columbia out on Victoria on the island. And it's warmer there this winter.
Okay.
It only gets down to about 50 or so. So I booked a place there, but we've got Gail's younger son, Russ, and his family is now living in Calgary. So we came out to here and we camped, and we said, maybe with COVID, we don't know how long it's going to last.
Mm-hmm.
We better get a house, something warm for the winter. So we went back to Ontario, traded the fifth wheel in on a smaller trailer, traded the truck back in on a Jeep Cherokee that would tow the trailer, came back out to Calgary area and started looking for a house. And then we found this place in Cochrane, which is it's a cowboy town. It's great. It's
very nice. Okay.
It's probably the fastest, biggest growing town going in Canada now. It has about 40,000, and probably in a couple of years it'll be probably 60,000. Last week I did my first beginner's class. We had 3 squares, and they're all talking about bringing friends in.
Very nice.
I had over 150 hits on Facebook for it, so I figure it might just do all right.
Yeah, sounds like absolutely. Wow.
So
good luck to you with that. Gosh. And when you can pull that kind of, and it just 3 squares of students is impressive. You don't see many of that. Not down here so much anymore. On occasion you'll get it, but it's not it's not like it used to be 4 or 5 years ago for sure.
Well, and that was just the first kick at the can. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay. Well, I definitely want to talk to you again about that when you get that going down the road and see how that's working out for you, man. Best of luck on that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So besides the new class, but the new thing you're starting up there, what else do you have? Do you still travel around doing dances, or you pretty much stay where you are for now?
Compared to what I was doing, I stay around pretty much. I get some guest dates here and there. Having moved to Canada, it kind of took me out of the limelight from the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So, not having been in the U.S. for the past 40 years, I can't remember the last date I had in the U.S. to tell you the truth, but I got so busy up here when I was in Ontario anyhow. I guess I would just do festivals and whatnot from time to time, or Germany and whatnot. travel overseas. But so I'm not a commonly known name anymore. I used to be known. October was a great month for me because I used to be a yodeler.
Okay.
So they get me in to do the Oktoberfest type of thing.
Wow,
But
very nice. Okay.
unfortunately, can't yodel anymore. My voice is kind of gone downhill.
Sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it happens, especially, I mean, I can see a difference in mine in the last few years just getting older. It just happens. What are you going to do?
Well, you ask about advice for newer callers,
Mhm.
and it applies to well-established callers too. Is don't stop singing, calling, and if you have any length of time of break, keep on singing. Doesn't matter what you're singing. Sing out loud, because that's part of why I lost my ability to yodel. Is the muscle is not there anymore. It's with COVID, and then I got hit when I came back from Florida this time. We got back on a Tuesday night, had supper, went to bed, got up at 5 in the morning and collapsed, and severe bleeding in my esophagus.
Gee.
I found out I got stomach ulcers and cirrhosis. So there's some other problem going on where I'm very short of breath. So got to examine that and find out what's going on there, because it's a little risky traveling
Sure.
many distances. And in Canada, you've got to travel distances to get to the next bunch of people. It's,
Well, Joe, I wish you the best on the medical stuff, man. I hope that works out for you for sure. The voice is something you can't take for granted.
yeah.
And of course, the few years that I've been doing the calling and being a part of it and traveling around and going to conventions and all that, you'll hear guys that are choreographers. You'll hear guys that are singers, pure, just beautiful singers. And then you'll find people in the middle. So you've got to, whatever you're good at, work at that. And then you've got to work even harder at the other stuff. Because I've always been told you've got to do patter. Patter's what gets you the next calling date,
Yeah.
So,
and you got to quit reading it.
Yeah. You got to have something committed to memory. You've got to have a few little tricks, not for a better term, skills to find to get out. And speaking of that, we talked about that. Mainstream plus, just give me one good get out, because I write these down and I'm going to use it probably in about a week or two. What's your favorite? What are your favorite get outs?
Unfortunately, my favorite ones are probably at the advanced and challenge level, having them across the street in a right-hand wave, so that they're looking back to the other side of the street, and you can call a trade circulate to a left elbow man.
Okay.
That's kind of cool.
Left elbow man. Okay.
One of the things I use as if I run into a problem or I've given them the wrong caller, I can usually see that it's coming up ahead of time. Like, everybody's at the partner I call pass through, wheel and deal, center swing through, turn through, element left, and I thought, oh, they're out of gear now. I'll do the same sort of a thing again. Pass through, wheel and deal, make a right hand start, and when you find your corner, element left. Okay. And now I've been like, I don't know what my corner is.
So that's usually the catch when you say, well, who's your corner, and nobody knows who their corner actually was. There's no win there.
No, you do the flippo thing. You say, rather than where's your corner, because you're going to get people pointing and who knows what. You get them in front of the person, and if you're not sure, you say, is that your corner? And even if they say yes, you say, okay, right and left through, dive through, pass through. Is that your corner? And even if they said yes on the other side, they might say yes over here, but sometimes they're going to say no. I said, oh my gosh. Okay, right and left through, veer to the left and Ferris wheel, and I'll do something. I'll get in front of someone that's definitely not their corner. I say, "That's your corner?" No. And then finally, I get them to where I know they're in front of the corner. I say, "Is that your corner?" They say, "Yes." I said, "All right, dos a do." And of course, they're already hanging on by the left, doing the left call, man. So it saves your butt in a way. But I always figured, hey, I'm not perfect. I don't pretend to be perfect with my sight, my choreography. For the most part, I'll do anything to keep from calling something that's uncomfortable.
Okay.
Like a bend the line that you've just been going forward on, and now you got to back up. I don't care for that, but even dos a do, I know some people say, well, dos a do it's so uncomfortable. It's not a good flowing thing, and blah blah blah. I said, all dancing is. It's how it's delivered.
Exactly.
When you teach your new dancers, if the heads are doing something, sides, your feet should be moving. Dance in place. Da-da-da-da-da. But it's up to you to give them good music. You give them good music, and they will. Riverboat Jig, fantastic little piece of music. It starts out, it's a 6/8 kind of a rhythm, but 6/8 translates to a 2/4, but it's a technically I don't want to get into that, but it makes the dancers just want to dance, move. You don't have to call; they're going to dance anyhow because it's dum 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 dum. Then all of a sudden, after one whole verse of music, it breaks into a 2/4 drum beat. Boom, 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 and it's just, if you can put the grand square in there, call a sing, call opener verse. And this is for patter, call something that's strictly 64 beats, and then get your side space grand square. And when that hits and the drum goes there, they're not going to be dancing like this with their head down. They're going to be like, whoa. They feel really good. So,
Yeah, no, with the giant selection of music that's out there now as opposed to what used to be. Yeah, you can do that when you put on a patter song, and you see the people are dancing before you ever say bow to the partner, bow to the corner, and all that. I got them, and then it's your job to keep them there. But so that's it. Music is a huge part of it, and today there's so many resources to get it from.
Well, I just put together some music for tomorrow for my beginners class, and I've got the old time singing called "Just Because." Do you know that one?
Just Because. I do not know it. I will find out before this week's out. Just Because. What label is that on?
There's a couple of different versions, but I've got two of them, and one of them is the old style sound, and it's head two ladies chain right back again, side ladies chain right back again, circle left, swinging corner promenade, something like that, and then throw your head right back and sing because, just because, and then they get a second chance because, just because. So I click on my music on this one because I thought, what have I got two of them for? Well, the one is the older style, and the other one, it has every instrument going. Every verse on that thing is a different sound of music, and it's a sort of old, kind of old hokey in a way, but it's, when you're in the act of square dancing, sometimes our cultural boundaries disappear.
Sure.
And you think, well, I'm a hot dude. I need hot music. Give me hot breaks, hold down, the groove or whatever. No. You probably can be just as much fun dancing Up Jump the Devil or something.
Yeah. Okay.
You deliver it, and that's I guess different people want to be a caller for different reasons, but whatever your reason is, the end result is you got to be a good performer.
Mm-hmm. Entertainer. Yes, sir.
Be an extrovert on that side of the mic. I forget who it was I asked. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? And most of the guys and gals would say, well, when I'm on the mic, I'm an extrovert. I think Ken Ritucci would say that.
Yes.
He said, when I'm off the mic, he said, no. He said, I'm not the center of attention. On the mic, yeah. So, and everybody has their own way of doing it. We have a guy up here, a little north of me, who's a good caller, Gary Winter, and he's very laid back, and you don't see it coming. But all of a sudden, the dancers are on the ceiling. They're going crazy. And he hasn't done anything goofy or startling different, other than he has just created that atmosphere. It's magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And I'm sure you know callers like that.
Yes.
Even Tony Oxendine is like that. Jet Roberts is like that. They, even Ted. Isn't that awful? Ted.
Lazat.
Lazat, yeah.
Yeah.
When they pick up the mic and they start calling, you don't go like, "Oh wow," it's a build,
mm-hmm.
and that's what their magic is they can build the excitement, and so it's not just the choreography, like you say, the music. You listen to the whole thing. Nowadays, it's too bad the record companies, when they do the samples, they do just the first verse and first figure. I want to hear the whole thing because of the music that they've done is so fantastic. Daryl Clendenin's Chinook records, he has some beautiful songs, just wonderful songs, and the music is fantastic. So, there's more music than you can hope for.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Well, Joe, we've been going for about an hour, a little over that,
Okay.
and I've learned that most people don't want to watch me for much longer than that. So It has absolutely been a pleasure. I'd love to do this again because you've got a lot more stories I can tell, and fascinating with Canada and back and forth. And I want to get off as soon as I can so I don't forget to ask you who the person in the keys was, because I want to find that out. So
okay.
Joe, again, I appreciate this. We did a podcast before I get off. I don't want to overlook that. You do a podcast also. Tell me about that.
Okay, pretty much the same thing reason that you started. I figured we have lives other than on the caller side of the mic. Many dancers, and it's not their job to think about this, but they kind of have the idea that we live in a little box, like Jim Gaffigan said, not Jim Gaffigan, so like a dummy, ventriloquist dummy. And someone puts the box on the stage, and we go out and we call it, brr, 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 and then when we're done, we go in the box till next week. It's just basic on my own lifestyle. I mean, I started with building and racing motorcycles, and I got involved with business. I was an entrepreneur from age 7 on up. I had music stores and businesses, and we still do some of that stuff. But different colors, like Daryl Lipscomb,
mm-hmm.
he makes pens, beautiful pens and pencil sets, custom made. Who knows that if they don't talk to him?
Exactly.
And most dancers don't get the chance to talk to the callers. What do you do for a living if it's not that? So I thought. So and also I liked watching Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Okay, makes sense.
So I thought, callers, we could do that. So I started out with the name Callers in Cars Getting a Drink. And everybody would bring their drink. Yeah. So, and then I decided to change it to something where I would not get sued. Call it both sides of the mic, which is what it is.
Okay. So both sides of the mic. And how you do that every week, every couple of weeks? How do you do that?
I was doing it every week. I found that it In fact, I've got just next week is my last one for this year. And that's going to be Kip Garvey, who you've had.
Yes, Kip Garvey's fantastic. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kip is responsible for me having some really good clubs because he traveled and was going further afield and needed substitutes, and he'd call me and say, "Can you fill in for me?" and whatnot. So that was great. And I want to, and he's got an attitude of that matches mine for new callers and callers in general. Smart guy. So I'll start up again probably in January. I think I'll probably go only to maybe two a month.
Okay.
Because I've got more activities going on the side too. And I'll probably do some that are going to be not necessarily on Sunday because to get Australia and Japan and some parts of Europe, they need a different time of day.
Right.
As you know, having been on, for instance, Eileen from Australia, she's in bed at 6 a.m. She comes on.
Yeah.
So anyhow, yeah.
Well, that was a good time. So it's both sides of the mic is the podcast. You've got you say Kip is this Sunday? You're doing Kip, or is it next Sunday?
26th. Yeah.
Okay. I'll look forward to that.
The only difference between yours and mine really is that mine is live so far, and it's kind of nice to have some other callers on. They come on based on who they know, and so they can razz whoever's in the seat. Yeah. Like you had Sean. Is it Sean?
Sean Butler. Yeah.
It keeps you honest.
Yeah, it does. It does. Joe, it's been a pleasure, sir. I look forward to your next Both Sides of the Mic podcast, and I want to get together and do this again probably after the new year. How's that sound?
That's great. Sure.
Joe, it's been a pleasure, brother. I will talk to you again soon, okay?
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, you have a good night. Yes, sir.